But now the question at large. So now we know the fate of Satan. We know that Satan will be bound up for 1,000 years, but we know that the case, but here's the problem. Has that already happened, or will that happen? This is the debate. Due to the influence of a theological giant, Saint Augustine, from the 4th century onwards, the dominant position of Revelation 20, right, due to his influence, because that was his position, is what's known as the amillennial view. What does that mean? Others before Augustine, but because of Augustine's influence, his magnitude, who embraced it, said that the 1,000-year reign of Christ is a spiritual, symbolic number, denoting Christ's reign not in the future where he comes to the earth, but the reign of Christ for the moment he bound up Satan, destroyed the work of Satan, bound him up at the cross and at his ascension. This is known as the amillennial view. So if you take this position, which is actually the dominant position in Catholic Church, that's the dominant position. Now, from what I gather, what I have studied and read, it is not the official dogmatic position of the church. It's the dominant position, and it's the preferred position, but it hasn't been made dogmatic. What position? That the 1,000-year reign of Christ refers to him destroying the work of Satan, binding him up at the cross, lessening his power and influence, where he's now reigning triumphant in heaven. And the resurrection refers to the spiritual resurrection. It does have problems, but I'm not here to show what the problems are. What I'm saying is, even this is not clear because there's debate. Did this already happen? So now all we're awaiting is Christ's physical bodily descent to then raise the dead and judge them and destroy the wicked in hell and usher in new heaven, new earth? Or is this future? Because I have blog posts that an earlier view, a view held by Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, and others, was that the 1,000-year reign of Christ is future, and it will only begin when Christ comes to the earth physically, and then he'll usher in the 1,000-year reign on earth. So even this passage is up for debate. But however you interpret it, one thing we know, Satan will be bound up for 1,000 years. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding his key, holding in his hand the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain. And he seized the dragon, Revelation 21:3, that ancient serpent who's the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. By the way, if you hold the amillennial position, you take this as being symbolic, that the binding of Satan is not that he was literally thrown into and confined in the abyss. It means that his power and authority has been greatly lessened and reduced. After all, if he was bound, how do you explain demonic possession and the need for exorcists to deliver? And threw him into the pit and shut it and sealed it over him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years were ended. This view was championed by Saint Augustine. After that, he must be loose for a little while. All right. When he's loosed, what will he do? And when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be loosed from his prison, will come out to deceive the nations, which at the four corners of the earth, that is Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their numbers like the sand of the sea, and they marched up over the broad earth and surrounded the camp of the saints, the beloved city, but fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire. Hence, Matthew 25:41 is now fulfilled. The devil is now thrown in the lake of fire, the everlasting fire, Gehenna, the second death. And brimstone, fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they'll be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now, I can show you some of the problems with the amillennial view. I can mention one. Catholics, is it the teaching of the Catholic Church? The man of sin, the man of lawlessness of the Antichrist will arise and he'll be empowered by Satan? Yes or no? Give me some feedback so we can go into now the question of Christ's death. Who did he die for? And the extent of his salvation. Now you see why the amil position is difficult? How can Satan be bound already? Because the binding of Satan takes place after the Antichrist and the false prophet are thrown into hell, not before they appear. See the problem? The beast, the Antichrist, man of sin, the false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire, and after they're thrown into the lake of fire, Satan will be bound for 1,000 years. How can Satan being bound for 1,000 years have already taken place before the beast and the false prophet have arisen and thrown into the lake of fire. See the problem? One of many problems I can highlight. Okay, everyone got it? So this is why you had a dominant view, a widespread view early on, Irenaeus, Justin Martyr, others, who said the 1,000-year in Christ is future. When Christ returns physically, he will usher in the seventh day of the earth's existence, because they believe that the 6 days of creation pointed to 6,000 years of human history, and the seventh day pointed to the time of Christ's return, which will start the seventh day of human history that lasts for 1,000 years. So they took it literally and took it futuristically. I have articles on it right here. You go to Answering Islam blog, you put in 1,000 year. That's it. Boom. The early church on Christ's 1,000-year reign. Justin, resurrection, and 1,000-year reign. Early church on the age of the earth, of creation. There you go. See the problem now? Yeah, in fact, Lord Jesus Christ reigns. Revelation 19. When Jesus Christ comes on a white horse with the armies of heaven, it says he throws the beast and the Antichrist alive into the lake of fire. And then Satan is bound. Let's follow the chronology. Remember, your earliest Greek copies and up until the medieval period had no chapter divisions. Let's follow the sequence. You guys enjoying this? Son of his right hand, here, Revelation 9:11-21. Then I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. He who sat upon it, is called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes are like a flame of fire. On his head are many diadems. He has a name inscribed which no one knows but himself. He is clad in a robe dipped in blood, and the name by which he is called is the word of God. And the armies of heaven, arrayed in fine linen, white and pure, followed him in white horses. See how much I got unpacked just to get to the main point? From his mouth issues a sharp sword with which to smite the nations, and he'll rule them with a rod of iron. He'll tread the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God, the Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh, he has a name inscribed. I gotta include all of it now, you see, so you can make connections. Now remember, if you're living in the 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, 5th century, when you have a Greek copy of Revelation, there are no chapter divisions. So there's no chapter 19. So you're going to read it as one continuous thread. Let me show you. This is what it would look like. No spacing. This is what a Greek copy looks like. All capital letters, no spaces between words, no chapter divisions. This is what you would be reading 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th centuries. All right, now, because we have copies that have survived, preserved, and they're photographed, so that now there's an online site that has the photos of these manuscripts so that scholars can access them if they want to read them and translate them, in case the manuscripts, the papyri, fade and deteriorate. Okay, so now with that in mind, on his robe, on his thigh, he has a name inscribed, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Then I saw an angel standing in the sun. With a loud voice he called to all the birds that fly in mid-heaven, come, gather for the great supper of God, to eat the flesh of kings. Notice verse 20. The flesh of captains, flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses, their riders, and the flesh of all men, both free and slave, both small and great. I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies gathered to make war against him who sits upon a horse and against his army. The beast was captured, and with it the false prophet, who in its presence had worked the signs by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped its image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with brimstone, and then Satan is bound. See the sequence? Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven. When? When the beast, Antichrist, false prophet, thrown into hell. Then Satan is seized, the devil, and he's not thrown in hell, he's bound in the abyss. Then believers are resurrected physically and sit on thrones physically with Jesus Christ to rule with him for 1,000 years. Then after the 1,000 years, Satan is loosed. And then he's thrown into the lake of fire where the beast and false prophet already are. They've already been there for over 1,000 years before the devil joins them. Now, amillennialists, how do you explain this? If we follow your view, Satan has already been bound when Christ defeated him at the cross, and now he rules from heaven. So the resurrection is spiritual. The reign is symbolic. Doesn't literally mean 1,000 years. It began when Christ ascended, and then it will end when he returns to judge the living and dead. How do you have him bound before the Antichrist shows up with the false prophet? By the way, do you want me to shock you? You want to get shocked? Do you want me to shock you with an insight that will blow you away? You won't get anywhere else. According Revelation 13, the beast will be killed and be resurrected, right? Remember that? He suffers a mortal wound. He's slain by a sword, but then he's resurrected. And a false prophet joins him. They're both called beasts, correct? Do you remember what I discussed the other day? Rabbinic Judaism expects two messiahs. Messiah, son of Joseph, will be killed in battle by a sword and resurrected by Messiah, son of David, and they will rule. Is it a coincidence, ironic? Rabbinic Judaism have two figures that resemble the beast, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. Isn't it ironic? It is Rabbinic Judaism, more so than Islam, that have a teaching that points to two figures coming. Messiah, son of Joseph, Messiah, son of David. And Messiah, son of Joseph is killed by a sword, but then will be resurrected by Messiah, son of David. Ain't that ironic? It seems that Orthodox Judaism, they are preparing for the beast and the false prophet. The beast in Revelation 13 says he suffered a mortal wound. He was struck by the sword, but then he was raised to life. The Orthodox Judaism, Messiah, son of Joseph, will be killed by a sword, but then he'll be raised to life by the other one, Messiah, son of David. Two figures, and they perfectly resemble the beast and the false prophet. Both of them are called beasts in Revelation 13. Isn't that amazing? And by the signs, the second beast, the false prophet, Revelation 13, it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast. It deceived those who dwell on earth, bidding them make an image of the beast, which was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Is it Rabbinic Judaism or Islam that's preparing you for the two beasts, the Antichrist and the false prophet? Which religion is really the religion preparing you for the Antichrist? There's nothing in Islam that says that Mahdi will come and die and be raised. It's Rabbinic Judaism that teaches two messiahs. Messiah, son of Joseph, will be here on the scene, who will die in battle, be raised by Messiah, son of David.